All right. Welcome back to the show. A little bit of a delay. There's always a technological delay. So I guess Zoom really does hold you to a 40-minute meeting. My guest is chuckling in the virtual green room. I thought that I thought they were being nice. I thought they dropped that. Apparently they are trying to force people to move up to the next level. I understand. I understand. We got away from Skype because there were issues with people having to scramble to reset passwords at the last minute. And we're into Zoom, which makes for a nice waiting room, makes for a quicker transition in between, as well as sharing of slides, which we're going to do a little bit later as well. But it also imposes a 40-minute limit. So you can set your clocks here, folks, based on our meeting starting at 8. This will guarantee you this show will be over, or at least our guests will be finished by 8:40. So I guess I shouldn't be talking any longer. I'm wasting precious time. Something to make sure I do every show for the safety of our guests. 98.5, feeling good, 98.5 degrees. Okay, we got a guest lined up in the virtual green room. Welcome to Co-Video Live TV, episode number 36. Let me bring up the audio and hit this magic button, which should work. Let's say a nice co-video hello to Mr. Jim Prosopoulos. You may know him as Mr. Prosopoulos or Coach Prosopoulos or Coach Pesop. How do they refer to you over there?
Coach Pesop's fine. Jim Prosopoulos is fine. It's usually Coach Pesop, usually, yeah.
Got it. Coach,
Yeah.
because you coach the soccer over at Munster High School, right?
Yeah, boys varsity head coach, going into my 22nd year. So used to coach basketball there too,
Right.
but just sticking with soccer now.
I wanted to have you on because I want to have friends on that are intelligent and offer interesting perspectives and can be entertaining. People that I've asked to come on, you're laughing. People that I've asked, they're like, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. But we had a great conversation earlier, and I want to touch on some of the things that we spoke about.
Sure.
You're a teacher over at Munster, and I know we've been talking teachers. My wife Tammy was on with a couple of friends, but you've got interesting perspective from the high school level. How's the e-learning been going for you?
Okay. Not the best. It's definitely not for the short-term solution. Sure, maybe for a few days, but now, unfortunately, we have to do it for several weeks, and it's a learning curve for the kids, for the teachers. It's not the best way to educate kids. So a lot of pressure all around the kids, and even with the teachers. So, good thing is that parents are being patient with it, and we're just going to do the best we can to benefit the kids. That's all you can do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked a little bit about some of the challenges and differences among communities about and school systems. Who was ready, who wasn't ready, who was ready to do it only occasionally. I think nobody was ready for it to continue for an entire quarter and possibly into next year, right?
You're absolutely right. We look at ourselves, school town of Munster. We're a brick and mortar school. We want just like every school district, I guess, but we want kids to come to the building. The whole e-learning stuff is it's not ideal, but we were prepared as much as we could be prepared. I think every district's sort of prepared, but they may do that isolated e-learning day now and then. But then when you have to do it for multiple weeks, that's a whole different ballgame.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I definitely agree. And the expectation that all different grade levels, all the same systems could apply to kindergarten all the way through to college is definitely not accurate. I mean, my wife Tammy teaches kindergarten. It's a whole different ballgame. I think you're able to more successfully pull it off at the high school level. Any successes that you feel, anything you're particularly proud of accomplishing with the whole e-learning?
Yeah, you know what? It really challenges you as a teacher to get better with technology and to appreciate a little bit more of the programs that are out there that are available.
Mm-hmm.
So we're learning along the way. We just got to make sure that kids, have the technology at home so they can participate, go through that hurdle. And of course, we want to make sure our kids are healthy and, there's not anything keeping them from being able to get educated, period.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so there are a lot of different challenges. Some kids, it doesn't work for them. They need to be in school. Parents are away, both are working. And then, there's occasionally I'm calling home and I'm waking up a kid at 11 a.m.,
Right.
and they're high school kids. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And but for the most part, it's working out pretty good. Not ideal, but you just got to stay positive about it.
Yeah,
So
you mentioned some of the technological hurdles, but the human aspect of it is that you've got real caring teachers on the other side who are interested to make it work and are pulling their hair out and putting in a lot of
yes,
time to make it work and are concerned about how it's working. I mean, I've said this before on the show, it's a recurring theme that these teachers do think of their kids as their own children, and people should respect that and appreciate that. Do you, right?
no, I totally agree. I mean, you feel like just speaking to a lot of teachers at the high school level. I mean, you just feel really bad. You feel sort of helpless as a teacher in a way because when you're in the school building, a lot easier to reach kids. And when you're trying to do it through email, through Google Voice calls, through all that, you feel like you're suffocating a little bit because you just feel this sense of responsibility that, and then you feel like you're letting kids down, even though you're really not.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a circumstance that we're all in. Unfortunately, just causes that a little bit. So you have to get perspective pretty darn quick and just realize that we're all in this together
Mm-hmm.
and got to make the most of it. And that's all you can do.
Yeah, speaking of being in it together, you mentioned athletics, some of the sports that have been canceled, recognizing those kids whose sports were completed with usual year-end awards, banquets, dinners, whatever. What have you guys been trying to do there at Munster to fill that?
Well, we're trying to recognize our. I think the concern is for all the kids. Obviously, they're missing school, but then when you look at, if you want to look at the eighth graders that are going to be going into high school, or the seniors in particular,
Hmm.
you feel so bad for them. I mean, they're missing prom. They're missing, if they play a spring sport, they're missing that. I mean, they're missing just being in school, getting those last few months and that fourth quarter, that last quarter of their education, and being with their friends. And so there are always ideas floating around about how to properly, honor these kids. A lot of it's done through like social media. We've been trying to honor some athletes through like athlete spotlights, sort of, almost like bios. We're going to start doing that with our seniors also. And so that's where you feel like the kids are being cheated, unfortunately, from their just last quarter of their senior year. So it's tough. It's tough. I feel bad for them. I really
Hmm.
do.
You talked about senior year and seniors going on. We talked a little bit earlier. School students that'll be returning to the same school may be an advantage because the same teachers, the system may be able to support them for missing out on a quarter of direct in-person education. But those that are moving on to college, the different colleges and universities may not have systems in place or may not thought, maybe they're working on them
Yeah.
now to get people caught
Yeah.
up, say in an advanced math class or an advanced science class where you need to make sure you are on with everybody else. I don't know what they're planning
Exactly.
to do.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The good thing is, you're doing your best to try to get through one final quarter of the school year. So these kids have been in school. If you're looking at a senior in particular, they've had a lot
Mm-hmm.
of years of high school already.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they're getting an education, but it's not going to say, I don't even pretend it's the same as if you were in the building. So they're getting a lot of the main things that they need to know.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, I'd be lying if I said, are they getting every single thing that they would get if they were in the building? Of course not.
Right.
But again, thank goodness it's only for this last quarter,
Right.
and we're not talking about a half a year or a full year, because that's when I would start even worrying a lot more as an educator too, or as a parent,
Right. Right.
for that matter.
We
Yeah,
we uh, we mentioned a possible negative side of it, something we hope, but you never know with him. Everything's usually cool until people get involved. If the e-learning setup gets taken to, let's say, an extreme or misapplied, let's say, for instance,
yeah,
you had some
misapplied.
thoughts
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, I did. Not to get political with this, I could just imagine some politician or somebody saying, "Hey, look at that! We took all this time to learn it. Let's just start doing more online classes, even during the school year." I know school districts do it during the summer,
Mm-hmm.
it's cost savings and all that. But I would hate for school districts or politicians to try to push to do a lot of that during the school year, because you know what? I don't care what anybody says. It is not the same.
Mm-hmm.
Kids have to be in the building, in classrooms. That's where it's most effective. So
Mm-hmm.
I would hope that I don't start hearing stuff like that in the near future.
No, no.
Who knows what the future brings for our state,
Yeah, specifically
for all
this
the states
fall.
for that.
Yeah, for the restart of school this fall. Interesting.
When I heard Indiana, I mean, we're not going to know anything until what, July.
Right.
I mean, what's going to happen for next school year. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I
will it
bet school
be
district.
half schools? I've heard all sorts of different things. I've thought of some on my own. This is nothing official from the governor's office, but what do? You do kids whose names begin with A through N on Monday, and then the other kids come back on alternate days just to keep the school not as crowded? I don't know.
I think everything's a possibility. I'm doing the same thing too. Is just brainstorming. How are they going to make this thing work? Like if we have some of these not exact restrictions. I know they're going to loosen up a little bit. They're going to start loosening up a little bit with the restrictions, but what if that we still have to limit numbers? You're right. They don't have it figured out yet. I think school districts are really in the process of trying to figure out, get some guidance from the state.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how that should be interesting.
Well, our governor here in Indiana, Eric Holcomb, announced today plans to reduce or rather roll back some of the lockdown, or the Hoosiers hunker down. And I think a lot of how school opening goes is going to depend how this all goes. If it's going to go to plan or if it'll be abruptly halted or accelerated, I think that's going to color that definitely.
And I think that's a great point, because and that's why they're not going to even talk about schools really until July, because schools obviously have a large number of kids all in the same area, same space.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to see and is there going to be a second wave and all that stuff? Who the heck knows? It's
right.
It's so confusing. Your head starts spinning.
Believe me. I know. I've been here. Yeah, hey, I've been here on the front lines of it here with COVID Live TV.
Yeah, I know.
Jim, I have to mention a first commenter, first and only so far, Morahawk. Blue is your color, so I guess blue shows up well in this. It was in a hurry here. I got there. It looks a little better. This is a large. I kind of outgrew it. Outshrunk it. All right.
You would look better in Mustang red, but I'm just throwing that out there. But that's okay.
I found certain colors work well with the black background. I found that my head does work well with the black background, and it's really hard to do a green screen or anything weird with when Cassie or Tammy are on. Hey, real quick, talking about family, you mentioned a positive aspect of it. I don't want to be all negative. A positive aspect on the home life of the whole lockdown.
You know what? I think you got to just take any, I've heard a lot of people say the same thing I'm probably going to say right now, but just being able to be around with your family. Sometimes I know we've all been in a situation where it seems like the second we step in our door in our house, we're off and running somewhere else. We can't even eat dinner together. We can't even do anything like that together. And this has really taught us to slow down and maybe think of the big picture of what life is really about. Mm-hmm. I bet you're going to start hearing some stories from people really changing the way they're living, that they've been living all along, just and taking some lessons out of all this, besides being safe and and washing your hands and all that stuff. But it's allowed us to sit around the table, talk more, eat dinner together, watch TV together, even just talk about stuff. And that's the part I do like. And
I do too. I like that angle, and to be continued, because I'll bring you back on and we can get deeper into that as we look back on it with some hindsight.
Sure.
Maybe. How about that?
Sure.
Anybody you want to say hello to real quick before I let you go?
I don't know. Couldn't say anybody. I don't know who's listening out there. I have no idea. I've listened from time to time. So I got a nice little program here, so I appreciate that. Just everybody be safe out there.
Okay, fair enough.
Just stay as positive as you can. And this e-learning really quick with that. I'm telling you right now, I just want it over with. And it's like I've mentioned before to you, Ron, it's like, we're at the end of the game, 1 minute left, got the lead. I'm just going to put my knee down and run out the clock, and just be done with it.
Take the win.
So take the win, and hopefully we don't have to go back to something like that, because that'll be tough if we have to do that another school year.
Excellent, right. Jim. Thanks for being on. I forgot we wanted to get that in there. I love that analogy. Take the win, take the knee, take the win.
Take the knee.
Stay home.
Let the clock run out.
All right, Jim.
Thanks
for joining us. Maybe we'll hook back up again on the show sometime again soon.
Be safe, everyone.
Bye now. See ya.
Bye.
All right, and with that, we're going to hit the logo up here and get our second guest on out of the virtual green room. Stand by. All right, and we are back. All right, we got to get rolling again quickly. My second guest is on in the virtual green room and ready to go. Let's bring him on. I think our make sure everything's holding up there. All right, let's say hello to a returning guest, my brother Harry Smolen from Medical Decision Modeling. Hello, Harry. Welcome.
Good evening.
Last time you were on, we were talking a little bit about disease spreads and spread modeling of those. You run a company, Medical Decision Modeling, that gets involved in that models of those kinds of things, but you also get involved in drugs. One of the drugs that you model is vaccines, and I wanted to talk a little bit about vaccines and the process, at least, which not the medical aspects of them, but the process which they're developed and how they end up getting released, right? So you want to roll straight into that?
Sure.
You want me to kick you to full screen once you get a share up there?
Let me know when you got the share.
All right, there we go. And you're on the full. Let me drop you off. Go ahead.
Great. Just got 4 simple slides here to kind of give anybody listening live or listening later on the general process of developing new vaccines. Because like everyone else, I'm hearing things out of Oxford University that they've already started clinical trials within their own employees. Others are saying that 2036, 16 years out, the gentleman from Fauci, how do you pronounce his name?
Fauci.
Fauci is saying, 18 months. So, this is kind of our bread and butter on, looking at evidence and doing what if analysis with evidence. So just 4 simple slides to provide people the general idea of how these things go. And I want to emphasize in this first slide, it's general stages of the development of a vaccine. The exploratory stage, they look to see, hey, what is the killer and what's the thing causing it? How do we bring these things together? And that's the exploratory stage. The hundreds of years we have in antibiotics, it's probably about 100 years now, 100 plus. Just looking to what to match up with what. Preclinical stage, people talk about vitro. What vitro, the Latin?
In glass, yep.
In glass. So it's literally in test tubes and petri dishes. Throw the drug in a petri dish and see if it kills the virus
yeah. Mm-hmm.
in glass. Clinical development has 3 phases: phase 1, 2, and 3. Phase 1 is healthy volunteers. Phase 2 is people that you think you're going to give it to longer term, but it's smaller, and you're looking for statistical trends. And phase 3, which involves hundreds to thousands of people who you're going to, in real life, you're going to give it to. So right there, you have 3 phases in clinical development. Regulatory review and approval. As I was told early on in this business, the 3 things about which are now 4 are: does the drug we're doing, does it kill anybody? That's what phase 1's about. Not people who are sick, but does it kill people, healthy people? Does it work? And that's what phase 2 and phase 3 is about. And what doesn't get as much glory is, can we make it, especially the biologics? Can we make it in such large scales? We get a working vaccine. There's not many people who are going to turn that thing down. So does it kill anybody? Does it work? And can we make it? What MDM gets involved with a lot of is anybody going to buy it? No. In this case, it's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
But the 3 pillars: does it kill? Does it work? Can we make it? And then quality control is you get a bad batch and you get a lot of bad press.
2 things working backwards here from what you mentioned that I wanted to bring up. In the manufacturing, I understand when they're fast tracking some of this presently, there are companies that are making product that may end up getting destroyed if it doesn't work. So they're manufacturing in advance due to the large number of doses that will be required. Have you heard that as well?
Yeah, AstraZeneca is partnering with Oxford University. But one of the big things, especially in clinical development, and all this stuff is public knowledge, you can see on clinicaltrials.gov, a very exciting site. But they on the phase 2 and phase 3s, there's different dosages, and they look to see what is the dosage level. So they're tweaking it as you go along, and you're correct that they are as they they're in this they're pipelining where everything is done in parallel,
Hmm.
and approval to accelerate it. But
One
if
other
you do
thing, one other thing that I had heard was Fauci even said it himself that when you have testing going on and you've been giving people placebos, and it turns out that the drug actually works, you want to quickly inform the people that got placebos and get them the real drug, right?
yeah, every clinical trial has an ethics group, and I like examples by extreme. If something's working incredibly well, you cancel the trial and you give everybody the intervention and kick everybody off placebo. If it's going really poorly, you cancel it early. So these trials typically have an ethics committee, very, very high secrecy on this, because you don't want the outside world knowing and people trading stocks on it. But yeah, they get peeks at who it's working with or who it's not,
Hmm.
and have the responsibility to kill the trial,
Okay.
because it's going so well, and it's unethical not to just give this to everybody, or that it's going so poorly that you want to kill it for another reason.
Dangerous. Yeah, I was going to say, let's hit the next one here. We're up against our Zoom clock there.
This is a typical, as if in the New York Times, you'll see in the upper right hand corner. Hopefully, you could see a mouse moving around. What's highlighted here is typical, and kind of touching upon the bullet points of before. The academic research, it could be academic or industry, but this is New York Times, so they'll give credit to the academicians. Preclinical, and as you can see, a pretty good chunk on the phase 1, 2, and 3 trials. On, as you were saying, Ron, the factories, and then building them, whether it be the factory itself or the processes, manufacturing and approval, and like I said, it's kind of the ones that don't get a lot of drama or props, are the manufacturing, distribution.
Yeah.
It's not a given. People just don't go and get these at CVS. So
So this is just showing that a typical. This was a study that was done based on history with vaccines of the past that the New York Times did, that show starting in 2020 that you could be at 20 out to 2036 in a normal situation based on history, right?
yeah, and to throw even some more cold water on it is that if what you're testing works, a lot of things, they call it the deep dive in drug development from phase 2 to phase 3, because there's a lot of money that goes into the phase 3.
Mhm.
So that's assuming that this isn't an iterative process where you're going back to the preclinical and looping back. It's not a linear process.
Okay. All right. What do you got on the next one?
The next one is our goal of trying to get that out. Let's just say August, which is the 8th month. So that's 20 months from January 2020. And as you can see, they're crunching everything. They're doing the preclinical as they're doing the phase 1. A little bit of shift on the phase 2. You just don't see the gap. You don't see the gap. You see how it's spread out here, and look how there's no overlap on phase 1, 2, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
Here, very much overlap, as you were saying, Ron, building factories parallel with preclinical, and doing manufacturing while you're doing phase 3. So,
But couldn't a high priority vaccine like this take precedence over other manufacturing and displace some of that manufacturing? Or is that not something drug makers would be interested in doing?
I believe that you're talking about building new things or utilizing things that that haven't are not currently up and running. But yeah, there is excess capacity.
Mm-hmm.
But without getting into another topic, there's a lot of things being ignored with all this attention on COVID, and this is just another example of when you think about it. How much excess capacity do you need in a system? Do you plan for one time in a century events, or do you just handle them as they come on? Very tricky.
Let's move on to that fourth one. I thought it was really interesting here. Go ahead.
Historically, this is a slide with the reference at the bottom. Our x-axis going back to 1995. The series of data starting at the top is, let's go from the bottom. H5N1, different than the H1N1, started in 1996, and you see a line here. And as you could look at the legend, the orange dots are when a vaccine was developed for, there's different strains, but you'll see the orange dots, R circles are when a vaccine's developed, and you'll notice a vertical line. And a vertical line in these series is the outbreak of the disease. And a dark dot means that it's been contained, and an arrow means that it's ongoing. So H5N1, different strains, we have vaccines, but look at the gap from 96 to the first vaccine in '07, and then different strains. And they're calling this an open-ended one. It's ongoing. SARS, successful containment without a vaccine. And I think in that case, the people were so sick, they didn't get a chance to spread it. So very interesting historically. The swine flu, H1N1, got a vaccine early, but they're saying that, hey, not open-ended, but closed arrow here, meaning it's ongoing. MERS, once again, it kind of resolved itself without a vaccine. So, historically, you're seeing that it's not a given that you got those orange circles really close to your vertical lines, and that's vertical lines. Recall is the emergence. Closed circle is the containment, and an orange circle is your emergence of a vaccine. So it's not a given.
Yeah.
History is not destiny, but it does inform.
Yeah, two things
So
that I mentioned right away. Somebody might see here, someone might misinterpret or interpret that why do we even have to come up with a vaccine? It appears that in some cases, or in some that a virus will go away on its own, and the and the herd mentality will kick in, or not herd mentality, the herd. What do they call that? Herd immunity. Sorry,
herd immunity. That is true. And Vanderbilt, if people have heard the Rismidavir, I think is the correct pronunciation, co-developed at Vanderbilt, and the co-founder of MDM is a golfing buddy of the gentleman who co-developed that at Vanderbilt. And these are true world experts in it, and they speak in uncertainty. And it really kind of hit me in a conference call that these people are the ones who are on the front lines, and they don't know. Herd immunity could be as low as 40% for some conditions, up to 95%. And, just do the simple math is that what's the mortality rate on COVID? So it could be hundreds of thousands of fatalities before we got in the U.S. alone, before we got to herd immunity.
Worth a minute to explain that. And herd immunity is a point at which enough people have antibodies, have been exposed to it, and bodies have developed antibodies that there are no longer enough hosts around for it to breed and survive, and it eventually becomes either diminished or eliminated, correct?
My background is engineering and simulation and statistics. So anybody who listens to this who's a virologist or a biologist, is a very oversimplified, is think about the virus, and it needs a host, and it's looking to jump from a carrier or to a host. And if it jumps from Bob to Tom, and there's antibodies, it can't do that. So it has to go to a host where it could live. And if it keeps jumping and everybody has antibodies, it'll die off, and just like it would be on a surface. So,
right.
That's, I don't know if that's biologically correct, but it's the interpretation is the same, and that it needs a host that is vulnerable for it to continue its life.
All right. Well, we're going to be coming up against our Zoom meeting. You may notice it in the top there. Let me do that. All right. Got you back in your corner. Real quick glimpse of your kitchen. All right. I appreciate that. All that information. Hopefully others do. We're trying to provide a certain level of entertainment, but also a certain amount of knowledge so that people can understand the discussion, the debates. Just here in Indiana, I'm sure you heard our governor announced a rollback of some of the Hoosier Hunker Down with 50% capacity at different places, or different. You heard some of that today, didn't you?
Actually, I've been doing a news boycott because it just gets so depressing after a while. I did listen to a little bit and a little quiz. 3 counties in Indiana that are going to be more restrictive in the in the, easing of the lockdown.
Right.
First one, Marion.
Yep.
Second one is what?
Lake.
Lake. Third one?
Third, I don't know. What's the Switzerland County? I don't know where.
Cass County, the one with the huge outbreaks in the meat plant.
Ah, Cass. That's Michiana, right? Cass?
Cass is, I thought it was Logansport.
Okay. All right.
But it was interesting that you got the region and you got Marion, and then they're throwing Cass in. But I think that's primarily from, it was like 40% of the people in the meat processing plant that tested positive. And if you think about hundreds of people and you put a fatality ratio on that, that's not trivial.
Mm-hmm.
All life matters, but that was interesting. It's Lake, Marion, totally understand it, and then thrown in the Cass.
I'd have to reread that because I did not. I just noticed I saw Lake and Marion counties. All right. Before Zoom decides to shut us off, we're well within the margin here, but I just wanted to make sure. Hopefully people enjoyed what we provided here today. Anything else to add or anybody you want to say hello to?
Hoping to get up to the region and be able to sit down with people and maybe distance at Langle's and have a beer and some pizza. But
well, it sounded like the opening of a place like a bar or restaurant. No sitting at the bar, and 50% of the capacity. And as my daughter and I were talking, fire capacity is pretty high. I mean, it's just based on the number of people that need to get out of the certain number of doors in a certain period of time, right? They're pretty high. I mean, it's still going to be big crowds.
If you're really bored, when you go into an elevator, look at the capacity and you laugh. It's like 20 people. And you're like, how the heck can 20 people be in there? But yeah, you're absolutely right that the capacities are extremely high. And, going to a White Sox game, I think that'll be quite safe because there'll be.
Yeah, that joke's been used on this show already. All right, I'm going to roll you off here unless you want to say hello to anybody else.
Everybody be safe. Anybody affected, prayers are with you. And I think this next 2 years is going to be very interesting. But I think we'll be prepared if it does come back. And everybody stay strong.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks for joining us, Harry. We'll talk to you again later.
Thank you.
All right. And there goes our guest. All right. So with that, we wrap up our 36th episode. Just to let you know or remind you that we're going to a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday schedule. We're going to a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday schedule for Co-Video Live TV. So we'll be back at it with episode number 37 next Monday. I forgot to mention, welcome to May. Happy May Day. We've made it through, where did the month of April go? Some people think it went slowly. I tend to think it felt like 3 months long, didn't it? We'll be back on May 2nd, 3rd. That would be the 4th. Promise, no sudden changes to the schedule. We will be Monday, Wednesday, Friday of next week. We've got guests lined up for those 3 shows. We will see you again on Monday. Until then, stay strong, be safe.